Casper News Now at 5 starts now.
Good evening. You're watching Casper News Now at 5. I'm Lilibeth Valles as always. Thank you for joining us tonight. Let's get a check of our weather with Chief Meteorologist Carl Rippey. Hey, Carl, some leftover gusts today, and we could be looking at a record-breaking heat by Sunday. What else should we prepare for?
True, we do have some warmth coming our way, and that is going to be pleasant as far as the way it feels. It is putting us in a little bit more of a risk for our fire weather concerns, so be aware of that as you're out and about. As far as how it started out this morning, is beautiful sunrise. We had our share of clouds on the horizon and kind of that blanket. As we got into the early part of the day, skies did clear, warmth made its way in, and we've had our share of gusts. You see the camera even shaking as we get into the evening. So that's something that we'll be dealing with as we get into the overnight as well. Some of those gusts are going to be with us for a bit on Saturday, start out our weekend, and that critical fire weather concern does stay with us throughout until we get some moisture back into the forecast, which is likely to return for our Sunday into our Monday. This was our winds today across the state. For those observation points, 68 in Rawlins, 43 Laramie. We had 43 also in Casper. Had some upper 30s in Riverton as far as the gusts are concerned, and Douglas called in at 40. As far as how it's looking down on Wyoming from space, we have a few clouds drifting through. They're going to be going through Montana. We'll have a chance to talk about what that means in the full forecast. That's coming up in a few minutes.
As the legislative session continues to heat up, a bill that would support fire districts statewide did not pass the Wyoming legislature. Reporter John Habershaw spoke to the Natrona County Fire District to learn how this could potentially impact their services.
In the face of proposed property cuts, special fire districts have seen their revenue reduced. A bill to help support these fire districts was recently shot down, and it could cause a ripple effect.
Station 13 could be shut down permanently if we don't have firefighters to staff that station.
Natrona County Fire District Engineer Ryan Grigg tells me House Bill 144 would have increased the number of mill levies a fire protection district can have from 3 to 10. With it capped at 3, that's roughly a $2 million a year budget, which is putting a strain on the district.
It would have allowed us to retain and recruit new firefighters. We have several of our firefighters getting ready to retire. We are currently in a hiring freeze, and we're not filling open positions right now. So it would have allowed us to close that gap, and it would allow us to take care of those issues.
Natrona County Fire District currently has 16 firefighters and can potentially go down to 10 within the year. With minimal staffing means an increased risk to the firefighters and can have an impact on residents as well.
It could mean increased homeowner premiums for their insurance, or it could mean a loss of coverage altogether if we don't have fire stations available. So the impact is fairly big.
Griggs explains that not all is lost. He tells me the overwhelming support from the community was shocking, and they'll be back at the Capitol next year.
Knowing that we have that support is huge. Another thing we learned how the process works in Cheyenne. And so we can go back next year and be a little better prepared, I think. So I'm fairly hopeful that we'll get it passed next year.
Griggs tells me in the meantime, they have a couple of secondary plans that can help out the district until next legislative session. Reporting in Casper because local matters, I'm John Habershaw, Wyoming News Now.
The Natrona County Fire District tells us the biggest thing the community can do for support is by contacting your local representatives. Lawmakers have crossed the finish line with a third week of legislating. State reporter Valeria Fugue was at the Capitol to talk to lawmakers about privacy and voting integrity.
On the 16th day of the budget legislative session, lawmakers talked about voting integrity and privacy in tech.
That is used as a catchphrase deliberately to undermine people's confidence in what has been even seen by Heritage Foundation as the best in the country.
On Friday, the Senate Elections and Political Subdivisions Committee looked at the elections hand counting for recounts bill. This would provide a process for hand counting any candidate vote recounts if there's a 2% vote margin.
This change is relatively modest. It's about an extra week worth of counting, which happens all over the country. So I think it does strike the right balance of being efficient and secure with our ballots while also offering an additional method of verification to ensure that the results are absolutely beyond question.
This bill would authorize the Secretary of State and county clerks to require recounts, provide hand count requested by candidates, and amend provisions for the election recount judges while requiring rule making.
There are decades of studies that have been done on hand counting that show that it is more costly, more time consuming, and less accurate.
Next, the House heard the third reading on the Data Privacy for Government Entities bill. It would require government entities to adopt policies for the collection, sharing, access, security, use of personal data, and require specific personal data policies. When I asked about the effects of AI and tech entities sharing personal data, raising questions of privacy, constitutionality, and Big Brother, Representative Mike Yin says lawmakers will likely be looking at privacy, diving into business statutes and business fraud in the interim, especially since it's so rampant in LLC businesses.
To make sure that LLCs aren't being used to commit crimes, right? Because we do have really strong privacy protections from them, but we still shouldn't allow them to commit crimes with business entities that we create in the state of Wyoming.
Wyoming is one of the most popular states for forming an LLC. With no corporate and state income tax, we have one of the highest number of new business entities registered per capita, with over 1.2 million entities registered here. Our business-friendly environment has helped grow the state revenue by 19.5% in fiscal year 2023 and helped create new business filings that were up 33% over 2022 and 47% over 2021. Friday now concludes the third week of this legislative budget session here at the Capitol. Because local matters, I'm Valeria Fugate, Wyoming News Now.
And there is just one more week of the budget session as lawmakers finish up third reading of the bills. Safeguarding student expressions in K-12 schools would establish clearer standards for student expression in schools across the state.
Students in our schools have the right to express themselves. There are time, place, manner components to that. And what we have in current case law works for our students.
Some in opposition of the bill say that this is already covered in the First Amendment and that each school already has a policy in place to deal with such issues. The bill sponsors argue the measure does not expand rights, it clarifies them. During committee testimony, a high school senior shared her experience starting a club at her school. She says while the club appeared to be treated equally on paper, that wasn't the case in practice.
There would have been clear boundaries instead of shifting rules and accountability instead of silence.
She shared that club materials that were approved by school admin were removed and covered up by faculty. According to her testimony, she documented the incidents and reported them through proper channels, but no action was taken. The bill passed in the House and will now work its way through the Senate. As the House and Senate broke off into their smaller groups, a couple of rooms were filled with the public to listen to speak their minds. Reporter Keely Bonner has the look into one of the meetings that decided the fate of two education-related bills.
Up for discussion on Friday for the House of Representatives Education Committee are two bills, one revolving around phones in schools and another regarding kindergarten through 12th grade funding.
But I'm happy with the work we did today.
Up to bat within this House committee are Senate File 35, School District Cell Phone and Smartwatch Policies, and Senate File 81, K-12 Public School Finance 2. Starting with the former, this bill is an act requiring Wyoming school districts to put in their own policies regarding if students can use smart devices during school, and if so, when and where.
It's really important that we address that in every school, but we left it up to the individual districts to decide how to do that.
This bill passed the committee 6-2. Shifting to the latter, Representative Martha Lawley tells me the K-12 Public School Finance 2 bill is one of the most important besides the budget bill, as it also deals with how much money will be allocated. Following public comment, representatives brought forward 4 amendments, 2 of which were Representative Lawley's own. Both had to do with removing what she felt was not necessary, one being a cap on superintendent salaries and the other being a reporting requirement of information that she states is already given to the Department of Education. Both were adopted. This bill also passed by a vote of 6 ayes to 2 noes. One of the no votes was Representative J.D. Williams, who tells me he voted the way he did because he feels this is overreach.
Local school boards are elected for that very responsibility that we're taking away from them. We're taking away flexibility from local school boards, and that concerns me a little bit.
Reporting from Cheyenne, because local matters, I'm Akivi Bonner, Wyoming News Now.
Both of these bills discussed will head back onto the House floor for further debate. They have already passed through the Senate. Meanwhile, the Wyoming Arts Alliance shared what they do best on Wyoming Arts and Culture Day with a performance by the Natrona County High School Band this morning. The love for art and music filled the Senate chambers.
Music has changed so much in the last 100 years, but the way we teach it hasn't.
Right.
And so that's been my goal, is to teach them how to actually function as a musician today.
I cannot express enough how grateful I am to have opportunities like this to sing, and to sing in such a sophisticated place.
How exciting. Well, Wyoming News Now will continue to have journalists at the Capitol, and combined with our news partners at the Wyoming Tribune Eagle, Wyofowl, and Wyoming Public Radio, we will bring you coverage throughout the session. In a marathon deposition still underway, former President Clinton is answering questions from lawmakers in their investigation into the late Jeffrey Epstein. The two sides haggled for months before agreeing to this deposition in New York. Monica Alba reports.
For the first time in more than 40 years, a former president testifies before lawmakers. Bill Clinton facing the House Oversight Committee in its investigation of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
No one's accusing anyone of any wrongdoing, but I think the American people have a lot of questions, and our House Oversight Committee is committed to getting answers.
He's been very cooperative, and he's actually answering the questions fairly, I mean, to the best of his ability. He has not taken a pass on pleading the fifth for any questions.
And from his first words, the former president set the tone for his deposition, saying, quote, "I know what I saw, and more importantly, what I didn't see. I know what I did, and more importantly, what I didn't do. I saw nothing and did nothing wrong." Bill Clinton's name and picture shows up hundreds of times in the Epstein documents the Justice Department released. Photos with Epstein on Epstein's plane and with Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell. The former president has acknowledged traveling on the plane while doing work for the Clinton Global Initiative, and he's never been accused of wrongdoing related to Epstein. Many high-profile names appear in the files, including Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, Bill Gates, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and President Trump, whose name and photo come up thousands of times. He has said he ended his friendship with Epstein years before the late felon was convicted of sex crimes. Democrats say Republicans set a precedent today by deposing former President Clinton, and now the sitting president needs to answer questions too.
This investigation will not be complete until we bring President Trump in to answer questions under oath. I'm hopeful that Chairman Comer will have the courage to move us in that direction.
Republicans push back, saying the survivors they've spoken with haven't implicated the president in anything.
Today's deposition comes a day after former Secretary of State and First Lady Hillary Clinton answered lawmakers' questions for 6 hours. She told lawmakers she had never met or had any connection with Epstein and knew nothing about his crimes. Monica Alba.
A western bird similar to the sage grouse is losing its federally protected status. This comes after the Trump administration sided with the beef and petroleum industries over its listing. The decision follows a federal court ruling in Texas. The prairie chicken, known for the bird's unique mating dances, once had a population in the millions, but now only about 30,000 remain across 5 states, including Colorado. The Biden administration had listed it as a threatened in some areas and endangered in others, requiring energy companies and ranchers to protect its habitat. 3 states and industry groups sued, and a judge agreed the listing was improper. Supporters say the move protects energy production. Environmentalists say they will keep fighting in court. Winter weather in Wyoming could shut down roads fast, but sometimes even when conditions look clear, where you are, you may still hit a closure. It's called a rolling closure, and YDOT says it's meant to keep you drivers safe and protect small communities. Doug McGee has more in this week's YDOT report.
Wyoming's winter weather can drastically impact current road conditions for travelers. When winter roads become hazardous, rolling closures can be used to control traffic flow on our highways.
We utilize rolling closures to help communities manage their resources and for the safety of the traveling public. If we continue to allow traffic to pour into the smaller community, they run out of parking spaces, lodging, fuel, and really just the traffic impact can adversely affect maneuvering around the traffic, the town itself. And so we'll roll it back to a larger community.
Rolling closures could be put in place following a major traffic accident or hazardous weather conditions. These closures help reduce the burden on services in nearby towns. Even if conditions are clear where you are, the closure means there's a significant issue or delay happening further up the road.
There's no set time frame for rolling closures. It's really dependent on the hazard that's impacting the overall system. So a rolling closure will stay in place once we put it in until the hazard and the hard closures open, and then we'll open the whole system at the same time.
YDOT works to alert the public to the rolling closures as they go into effect. Where available, overhead signs will alert drivers to a closure before they're stopped by the gate.
During rolling closures, the gates are closed. All the informational signs, the advanced warning signs are turned on. They have flashing beacons. It's basically treated the same as any hard closure. And in fact, the penalties are the same for going past that road closure.
Reminding you not to drive on closed roads and always buckle up. This is Doug McGee reporting.
And we do have some rolling closures that are in place even as we speak. We'll talk about why coming up. Well, we've made it through the week. It's great to see you. Hope you're doing well. Some of the things going on in our weather are going to include the warmth that we had, and some of that has lingered just a bit. We're sitting in the upper 50s, a little bit warmer than we were yesterday, and these winds still coming in from the west, southwest just a bit. Our humidity remains fairly low, so that's something that is going to be a factor for us. We get into the late evening hours, we're still going to remain pretty dry, even breezy for us. Mid-50s in Riverton. And looking out over the snowies from Laramie, we see some clouds that are trying to build in. Some of those showers have ceased. We do have some cloud cover here and there, some threatening skies. Temps for us in Laramie at 48, just to give you an idea of what it's like across much of our region. And those winds are still coming in from the west, 29 miles an hour in Laramie. These are our gusts that we had today. 68 for us in Rawlins. Pretty windy across the plains there on the I-80 corridor. 43 Laramie, 52 in Cheyenne. We saw some 40s across our region, 37 in Riverton. Also saw some of those pretty strong winds and sustained winds across the state. Looking at our conditions in terms of just seeing what it looks like from space, looking down on Wyoming, there are a few clouds that are trying to build in. The main event, though, the thing that we're really watching is this system that is sitting off the western seaboard, and it's destined to make its way into Washington and Oregon. It'll make its way across Idaho as well. And then as we get into the early part of our week, it's going to have a chance to hang up on the western ridge of Wyoming. That's going to be a Sunday night, Monday, Tuesday event. So it is making its way through. It's sitting quite a ways still out in the Pacific, and some of that moisture is going to be able to make its way through. High pressure is in charge of much of the southwestern part of the state of the United States weather. That's going to keep some of these conditions to more to our north, but we do have another system that is building in. It's sitting out here and it's continuing to rotate. It's going to be building moisture. That's going to make its way in as we go forward through the forecast, and that's what we're going to see as we get into the latter part of next week. So the good news is we are going to get some moisture. Some of us get a little bit more than others. Western side of Wyoming, of course, is going to get a bulk of that. Some of those conditions will come through the southern tier. Some may make it into central Wyoming. As we see this make its way out, some of these showers are going to be short-lived. They're not going to be real heavy, but they're setting the stage for the next wave as we get into Thursday. So the week holds chances of some of those stormy conditions to last throughout the week and the next week and weekend. So something that we'll be watching. A lot of 30s in the morning. We'll have some breeze that'll last until the afternoon. That'll stir some of our warmth around. Upper 50s, mid 40s, kind of where we're going to be at. So this is the way it looks as we go into the weekend. We're going to be in the upper 50s. It'll be pleasant. It'll be nice. It'll be really pretty pleasant in terms of just the sky conditions. Monday, Tuesday is when we see those clouds build in just a bit. Wednesday, we're going to have some bluster. That's in advance of that system that's coming in late next week. Thursday, we're going to have some chances for those stormy conditions to build in. We'll have a rain-snow mix. It's going to be cold overnight, so if it gets started early in the morning, it'll be more snow, and then we get into the afternoon, it'll transition through rain, snow into rain, but it will bring some moisture to the area. That's something we'll all look forward to as we get through the week with some warmth and some weather. Well, you know, the main question is for everyone about the wind. Has it been windy enough for you?
Of course it has, especially at the beginning of the week. I already know that I'm going to have a great day when I start walking out of my car and the door just slams open, you know?
Yeah.
I'm getting used to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about
you? It's, yes, it's, yeah,
You've had a windy week too.
Man, I'll tell you, it's, so we do see some relief.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a little blustery through the first part of the weekend.
Okay.
And things are going to get a little nicer. As far as the fire weather concerns, we're going to be dry, so be careful with anything that could start a fire. With the winds, it'd be hard to suppress a wildland fire. And that warmth, low humidity, we have all the ingredients. So with that in mind, as we go forward, that much needed moisture, even if we get a little bit on Monday, is going to help. Cloud cover, higher humidity. Wednesday will be blustery. Into the end of the week, we start to see some of those chances for some showers. I think we have a pretty good chance for that to happen. And then active weather pattern kind of kicks in past the weekend. So we'll have a chance to see you again tonight at 10.